Favorite beat that I ever heard? For me, when I heard Eric B. and Rakim, Eric B. for President, I was like, what is this? Growing up in Texas, we're talking 70s, 80s. We didn't have any rap music, no scratching, no turntable cutting yet, no mixers to crossfades. We were just brought up on all the basics, country music, soul music, jazz, blues, Zydeco music, rock, of course, big time. Then into the 80s, it went into the new wave punk era, which is also I was a part of. I was very rebellious and all the spikes and the double belts with all the metal on it and the slam dancing mosh pits. I did all of that. I started really in 1987, but as far as being able to say I know how to produce, it would be 1990 when I got when Gang Starr signed to a major deal. The first Gang Starr album that we did in 88 and 89, it was more of a combination of me, Guru, and our engineer doing it together. So we were all pressing the buttons together, like side by side. And he'd be like, you hit that, and I'll hit the 808, and you hit the hi-hat, and I'll hit the snare. And we'd hit it, and then we'd look at each other and go, yeah, that's hot. The second album, I started practicing all the time in our apartment. Me and Guru lived together at the time. I would just hammer on the drum machine until I got to a point where I felt like I got it. And that's when I started to develop the sound, of the premier sound, so to speak. The first piece of equipment I worked on was the SP1200. Every artist that you were into that was already successful, you'd see them in a video or even an interview with them in the studio, and they always had an SP1200, so it was like, oh, look what they're using. So whatever they were using, I wanted to use as well. And that's how the SP1200 was the weapon of choice from anybody in hip hop, pretty much predominantly at that time in the late 80s going into the 90s. One piece of equipment that I can't work or live without is my MP. It's MPC, but everybody says MP. Without my MP, I'm, kind of sitting there for a minute, stagnant. The equipment I work with now is actually more software oriented. I still use an MPC, which I got famous for. It was around 92 when I started saying, you know what, I can definitely produce anyone. Because I had already told Guru, I'll always be in Gang Starr with you, but I want to be able to produce outside of the group. He said, that's fine, because I'm going to do other projects that I want to do outside of the group as well, which is healthy. And Guru always called it creative space. That's when KRS-One, became part of me doing Return of the Boom Bap. I started working with Ice-T and, again, KRS, and then all the calls started just coming in, just back to back to back to back to back. And that's how I started to branch out and do other production for other groups. Transitioning into working with somebody like Christina, first of all, the pop world is gonna always be something that you can't avoid. So her former husband actually put her onto my music, onto the Notorious B.I.G., Group Home, stuff like that, Jay-Z songs that I'd worked on. And so from there, she was so into that she said the sound that she wants for Back to Basics it sounds more like what I do. So I was ready to go, and we were just supposed to do one song, and it turned out to be 5. And we got a Grammy for the first for the single. So that was a good thing, because you never expecting all that stuff, but when it happens, it's like, wow, we're getting a Grammy for our single. Okay, cool. So give my statue. Building with A$AP Ferg with the sound that I do versus what he does, like with Trap Lord, and he told me as soon as we connected, he said, do me one favor, make sure it sounds like the premier style. I want to show that I can flow over the style you do. He said, don't make what I have hits on now. And I was like, no problem, which I was gonna do anyway, but I said, you got it. And next thing, we went in just for one day. We just said, let's experiment and see what we come up with. And then Our Streets record was done in a day, and he was like, yo, man, I want to put this on my album. I was like, I want it for my record, and then Payday Records, who was my former manager, who managed Gang Starr from the beginning of our career all the way to our last album, he wanted to relaunch the label after 25 years and was like, I want you to bring that same element that you brought in 1994. So I was like, let's go. And now we have the Our Streets record.